Let's go!
Well, good morning, everyone, on this wonderful, beautiful day today. This is going to be a very special episode. I mean, turn off everything that you have right now. You wouldn't want to listen to this. We have Mubin Shaikh in the house.
Yeah, Mubin Shaikh is actually an extremist. Yes, he actually was an extremist at some point in his young years, and now he's actually a former terrorism operative. What that means is the intel that he gained by actually being on the inside, seeing ISIS get birthed, and kind of being in the mix of Al Qaeda, he's actually used that for CSIS and for the RCMP to work to help stop terrorism in Canada.
Yes, and if you can just go back, if you remember where you were for 9/11. And the things that led up to that, I can tell you Mubin did, because it was 9/11 that caused him literally to shift his world and make change for the better.
As it did for so many people. I'd say this, there's a spy museum in Washington, D.C. that actually has a whole wall featuring Mubin and some of the elements that he did to bring down terrorism in our nation. So, man, get that shawarma out. Okay, get ready.
Yes.
Pizza. I didn't mean that as any cultural thing. I love shawarma.
Yes.
And this is an amazing podcast. As we always say, we're just scratching the surface, but we think Mubin, he was an incredible guest.
Absolutely. Next on Standing in the Six.
And Standing in the Six. a little reverb.
Straight out of the T-Dot.
That's what it is.
Live from the 6 boroughs.
Don't go nowhere.
For sure. Welcome to Standing in the 6 with your hosts Michael and Constantine.
Well, good morning, everyone, on this beautiful Friday morning. We got in the house Mubin Shaikh. And who is Mubin? Mubin is a former undercover counterterrorism operative for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. Did I say that right? All right?
All right. CSIS.
CSIS for those
that
need help identifying what that stands for.
For the peasants.
But thanks for coming on board, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Good, man.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, that's a lot that I threw in there. I'm probably thinking, what the heck is a former undercover counter? It's a lot. Just to kind of get about, where did you grow up? What area?
Okay, I grew up, I guess my earliest years, Caledonia and Lawrence, let's say.
Okay.
It was a place called The Village.
Okay.
Nice.
Building complex, townhouses surrounding it.
Nice.
Basically Caledonia and Lawrence, and I pretty much stayed in that same area. So, former city of York,
Okay.
I guess, what they call it now.
Yeah.
Toronto now.
Yeah, Toronto. Yeah, it's changed. I mean, you've always had a 416 area code.
That's right.
Or I mean, you probably were there before you actually had to type in 416.
Well, as soon as you said 416, I flashed back to the rotary phones.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Crazy.
Okay, so Toronto, born and bred. Love the hat too.
Yes,
Yes,
of course.
yes.
Representing
Hat.
my gang signs.
Yeah, exactly.
Our gang sign.
Our. Oh, I like that.
That's right.
Hey, that's actually a good T-shirt. Canada flag, our gang sign.
Yeah.
Right?
He's all about t-shirts. He's all about always
Yeah,
putting something on a t-shirt.
I know. I realize that.
Yes.
Okay, so for people that don't know you, I know you've been heavily on television. You know, Mubin speaks to anything in terms of national security. He's one of the voices that speak to homeland security, specific to terrorism and how it affects people. That is definitely not your average run-of-the-mill job.
No.
You might have a cubicle, and you might make the cubicle like a beautiful place to work in. I'm just saying, I don't know, but give us an idea. What's it like to do what you do?
Well, it's not in a cubicle.
Okay, so
what I do or what I did.
yeah,
Basically, the way the Canadian Security Intelligence Service works is obviously there are a bunch of different functions, right? Basically, the main functions are collection and analysis. Right, so the analysts are really in the cubicles, or
okay,
really very intellectual, academic approach to so whatever the collectors bring in, that information the analysts will then process and whatever. So I fall into the collection side. I'm the undercover, so even a CSIS intelligence officer doesn't do what I do. Right, what I do is I sit next to the bad guy, who thinks I'm his buddy and part of his group, and I have to pretend that I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically was my life for a number of years. Various different groups, might be an individual that the service has targeted for elimination. I'm kidding. We don't do that.
Yeah.
No, but has targeted them for for whatever reason, right? And I'm never told what information the service has on that person. I am sent in as an independent eyes and ears verification system, if you will. So they know that target number one has been doing XYZ. Now I don't know that, but they need 100% proof that this is in fact what this person is doing. It could be that people are making anonymous phone calls to the service, and thank God that we live in a country that anonymous phone calls don't qualify as evidence. So when the service starts to look into it and they say, wait a second, we have human sources out there that are listening in or whatever else, let's say eyes and ears, and they're also saying that this guy showed up at this place, so we want to know who this guy is exactly and what they're doing. So they'll send in somebody like me to get in, to try to infiltrate the individual's network or the group, whatever, and confirm or deny what the service knows. And so can't do that from behind a desk.
Yes,
right.
A collector.
Yeah,
that is a Netflix series.
So
that's a title for a Netflix series.
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
The collectors. I mean, because that's just how you handle the information.
Yes,
And it's all off
right.
intel. Curious, you were saying anonymous phone calls, how it's not used as evidence, and how that's a great thing. Why?
Well, because you need to be able to verify, accusations and claims. I mean, I'll give you a great example. This is something that stuck with me, has stuck with me, and will never leave, just because of. So, there was this Muslim imam, who somebody called about him, and they said this guy is a Taliban supporter, and I know the guy, and I was like, I don't believe that. That can't be. I need to see more proof of that. They're like, well, can you find out, and blah blah blah. So, anyways, long story short, it turned out it had nothing to do with Taliban. It was other Muslim people in the community who were jealous of the money this guy was making because he ran this Arabic program and made it very user friendly, which a lot of them couldn't do. So just out of pure jealousy, they called the service, right? So it's things like that
to put him on the radar of
put
the
him on the
service,
radar.
obviously with intention to.
Yeah.
Okay, so to use the system against him.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Man.
So that's stuff that's happening in the present.
Yeah.
Right? So if we go back in time, what kind of reading some of the notes here, what kind of
how do you? Which course at Seneca did you take to get into it?
Yeah.
Shout out to Seneca Sting.
To go to the origin stories, how did this all get into place? How did you, look to be man, the jihad? I'm gonna jump into that. What? How did that start? At what age?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised here in Toronto, Canada, and coming from Indian background, and my parents came here early '70s, and if you kind of follow the post World War II independence movements, especially India and Pakistan, right? Looking at that region in particular, the Brits were of course all over the place. And, as early as the 60s, you started to see people from India going over to Britain, U.S., Canada. And my father was in that group that went in the early 70s. Now, my grandfather was a police officer in India who also did undercover work and whatnot. So it is literally in the blood.
Wow. Okay, that's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He sent my dad to the UK to live with his uncle. So my dad grew up in the UK, was studying there, got a telecommunications job in Canada, Bell Canada, of course. Came here, I was born. Now what they do is they tend to replicate a lot of what they do back home, quote unquote, in the countries that they come to, because that's all they know. So one of the things they set up was an Islamic school. And a medresa, they call it, right? Medresa just in Arabic means place of study, right? But madrasa is used as, in our understanding, if you think about in Afghanistan, Pakistan, where kids are sitting on the floor, wooden benches, rocking back and forth, reading the Quran, not understanding a word of what they're saying. So that's what I was put into. I went to public school by daytime, of course, and it was a complete opposite, right? The Quran school was tough. I mean, you got beats, you got shots. They put you in stress positions. Boys and girls separated.
Wow.
You know, only one cultural community represented. Go to public school, boys and girls mixing, caring, nurturing environment. So this starts to lay the foundation for an identity crisis that would hit me later on in my life.
Okay.
And when I got to high school, actually I joined the Army Cadets. I was in the cadets for 5 years. And also the peer group that I had in high school. So we pretty much ran that high school, all right? Like I love this. I love even telling this part of the story because I wasn't bullied. I wasn't picked on. I wasn't the victim of racism.
Right.
We were the cool kids of school, right? We ran that school. And what happened is I had a house party while my parents were out of town. And unfortunately and unbeknownst to me, my dad had asked his brother to check on the house while he was gone.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the party, literally in the middle of the party, the door flies open. It's like a raid, you know? And it's my uncle, and he's like the mean Muslim dude, right? Like scowling face, beard, robe.
Scar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
The mean Muslim
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
it was bad. So
Oh, man.
it basically what happened was I was just overcome with shame and guilt. And that told, and I basically told myself, look, I need to get super religious. And that's how I'm going to salvage my reputation, right? It's sort of like how people become like born again or whatever.
So that was like a defining moment for you.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Yeah.
Wow.
Because as a high school student, whatever, this cool kid, like my reputation is ruined. Not ruined, but
Yeah.
kind of added a whole other level of coolness to the party, right? Like when a member of the, parents, rushes the house.
Yeah.
But
So
basically,
so the party officially ended from that day, I guess.
yeah, it did. Yeah. It just, I felt really ashamed and embarrassed, and my life kind of crashing down on me. So basically what I said is I'm going to go on this religious trip to India and Pakistan. 2 months in India, 2 months in Pakistan. This is the summer of 1995.
Okay.
Were you guys born then?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Come on, man. Oh, that's
I was
a compliment.
driving.
What a compliment, dude.
I was driving.
Like that?
Yeah.
Just started driving that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 95 I go to India and Pakistan, and
Okay. How old are you right now? 95.
43.
No, but in
Oh,
95.
and so 90.
you would've been
Well,
19.
September is my birthday, so I was good.
Yeah.
I was 19. Yeah.
Okay.
Because then I turned 20 when I got back.
Okay, so you're 19 right now. Okay.
I'm 19. I go to India, Pakistan. India's fine. Get to Pakistan. They send us to a city called Quetta.
Okay.
Now, Quetta, for those who do know that, even in the 90s, was the headquarters or a stronghold of the Taliban. So
Did you know this going into?
I didn't know this. No.
So you're walking in blindly.
I'm walking
I'm
in
about to
blind.
get an education in Quetta.
You got your
Yeah.
Sony Discman. You went to HMV. You loaded up
Walkman,
your,
with the
that's
cassette
right.
player.
Yeah.
The cassette player, that's
Yeah.
right. I don't even think we're allowed to bring those. I
Wow.
think you could, but they had to be religious things only.
Yeah. Are you nervous at this point that I'm going right now to foreign lands, new experiences? What are you feeling?
Yeah. Well, so because my family is Indian, I had gone to India. I
Okay.
mean, at least a couple of times
Right.
before this trip, but it was to see family, right?
Yes.
And it was always in comfortable
Right.
and familiar environments. This was not that, right? This was with strangers and places I had never gone. Definitely not with family.
Wow.
You're staying in the mosque. It's a very austere way of living.
Right.
Because you're living in the mosque. You're sleeping on the floor. There's
Yes.
your shower is a bucket, like a pitcher that you're scooping out of a bucket
Wow.
and bathing yourself with. Like that's how
Right.
you bathe.
Right.
And oh my God, the toilets. Jeez.
Yeah.
Because like the squatting ceramic toilets,
Yes.
and like it's just like disgusting, man. Like
Yeah.
it's one thing being in the West and in the bathroom where you have air fresheners and
Yeah.
exhaust fans,
Exactly.
and you don't have that. It is like disgusting heat first of all,
Right.
Yes.
and then you're just like, can I say shit?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course, man.
Just
Let it all out.
shit smells. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just
Yeah.
wall of shit as soon as you get into that bathroom. So.
Yeah. And every surface is sticky.
Oh man, it's just, and I got really sick. Like everyone gets like this intestinal amoeba type thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like this, you got to go through. It's like 4 days, 5 days of
Oh
just
my God.
hell.
It runs
Wow.
its course. You
It-
have to. Yeah.
yeah, it does, right? So I mean, in that in that respect, it was like, it was what it was. But mainly it was ending up in Quetta and having this chance encounter with the Taliban. Because the way it worked is we would go around the local area, inviting the local Muslim population there to the mosque, right, for prayers and to hear our lectures that we were going to give in the mosque. So as I was walking around the local area, I could see from the distance, there were other bearded, turban-robed men. And so I thought, oh, these are fellow Tabligis, like fellow Jamaat people or Muslim people. So I went over and I had a translator with me, and then I realized very quickly that these guys are not shop owners. They had rocket propelled grenades, AK-47, belts of ammunition. And so because I was in the Army Cadets, I know what that is, right? I knew what that was, and so I was enamored by them.
Right.
Yes.
Like this is cool.
This is cool.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Because think about it.
Especially as a contrast to the shopkeeper.
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
and
yeah.
and especially as this young Muslim kid looking for this new identity, especially one that is rooted in religion,
Yes.
coming from this complete 180. This was everything for me.
Right.
So
Because it represented a power seat,
Yeah.
in this new room, right?
yeah, it's interesting. I kind of caught me off when you said that, because I always say in hindsight that it was that notion of belonging to this greater cause and this greater group. And when you're coming from a sense of powerlessness and you move into something extreme that gives you a sense of power, it's very easy for people to latch onto that. This is really what we call this process of radicalization.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it is. It's where people become increasingly extreme in their views, and there are cognitive openings that cause that. A cognitive opening in radicalization discourse is anything that basically makes you receive ideas that you would not normally be receptive to.
Mm-hmm.
So take for example when somebody someone in your family dies. If there's ever a time that people find God or purpose in their life or
Right.
lose purpose in their life,
Right.
it's that.
Yes.
That's an example of that, right?
Yeah.
And something that's so traumatic to your system that you begin to now become receptive to other views that previously you wouldn't be receptive
Yeah.
to.
Or even
it's
search
always
out.
it's always like what I used to hear was if you're an atheist, for example, and I've heard this example, you're an atheist and you're on a plane and there's turbulence, like really hard turbulence.
Oh God.
It says God, God, God. You know what I mean? It's like you call out to the God you don't believe, right?
Right,
It's
right.
funny how that's the first thing that kind of
That's
popped
so
into
true.
my head.
That's so
you know?
true.
What did they say? There's no atheists in the foxhole.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, so I met them. I became very enamored by them. I liked their narrative of, you have to be a strong Muslim. You have to be militant. You got to be hardcore, right? You got to let everyone know that you are, right? Like it was like an in-your-face Muslim,
Right.
right? So I came back in the fall of '95. Taliban come to power in Afghanistan. I see this on TV. I'm like, holy crap! Like
It's
I met
crazy.
these people.
Yeah.
Like they did what they said that they were going to do.
Yeah.
And I took it as a validation of their ideology.
Yeah.
And so I fell deeper into that ideology. Basically, this part goes from basically, let's say 1996 to 2001. And in these years is when I was very militant, always talking about, fighting the kuffar, the non-Muslims. And not just any non-Muslim, but you had to be like hostile combatants, right? Against. In 1996 is when the Russians invaded Chechnya, and there was a big civil conflict that happened there, and so that was the place that I wanted to go to fight as a foreign fighter, to fight the Russians with these jihadists who were over there. 1996 is also the first I think it was the first bombing by a guy by the name of Osama bin Laden. Might have heard of him.
Yeah.
So this was happening around that same time.
Yeah.
Now, just as a side note, well, it's more of a side note, but as my journey, my trajectory is on this incline and increase, I got married to this girl that I knew from high school.
Back home.
No, here in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's Polish,
Okay.
right?
Hey,
That's right.
I'm half Polish.
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
Well, now we're related now. There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah, no, I went to high school with her. We all hung out together, this and that. And then I went away and got super religious and came back. And then she got interested in me, right? So, really by the grace of God, that I don't know why I even like proposed to her, but it was in the middle of this like theological debate. I think she was reading a book on Hindu philosophy called Raja Yoga by a very famous Hindu philosopher, Vivekananda. And so we were just kind of like half debating whatever, and I basically just said to her, I was like, if your views were a little different, I would propose marriage to you. She was just completely taken aback, and then we kind of sat and talked, and she's like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I'm just like, what? Did I just hear her say that?
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy, really, really by the grace of God, because I don't know, man, but 20 years later, right, we have 5 kids.
Wow.
Yes, we're done.
Yeah.
So I got married in 98, and then I went on this crazy honeymoon trip, like to Saudi Arabia, to Mecca and Medina, the 2 holy sites, to Egypt, did the tourist thing around the pyramids and the Sphinx. Went into Israel / Palestine, through the Rafah border, by in the Sinai, I guess, and did the tour, Holy Land tour there. Watched the sunrise from Masada. Was at the Western Wall. Really, really great experience. Now this is pre 9/11. You don't have a picture of me from what I used to look like. Maybe I'll give you one a little bit later. But I had a giant beard, black Taliban turban, long robes. Like I looked the part.
Wow.
Now this is pre 9/11, so
Yes.
showing up at the Israeli border looking like that today might be a little more difficult. But
Yes.
I didn't have any problems. I had a Canadian passport. I'm not Arab, so I think that's really where their concerns come from most of the time. And then went to India and finished off. Went to the Taj Mahal and did the tourist thing there. So that calmed me down a lot. But it didn't completely take me out of that discourse, if you will, that jihadist discourse. And it would take an event like 9/11 to do that.
So let me ask you this: when you're before the whole 9/11 thing happens, okay, are you acknowledging that there's something just doesn't feel right about what I'm doing, or does it feel right to you at the time?
It does feel right at the time.
Okay, what about your family and friends? What are they thinking while you're in this? Because sometimes it's the people on the outside that have a better view, right? We're in the box, in the bubble, and something. What is their perception of everything?
Yeah, I think some of them thought I was going through a phase.
Right, like getting a tattoo at the age of 40 kind of thing?
Yeah, I think they thought, this guy's going to get over it. He'll come back down to earth and be normal.
But are they looking at it as a negative thing? Or more of like, what's he doing? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they really didn't know how to see it, because for a lot of Muslim parents, like when they see that their kid is more religiously observant, it's a good thing, right? And for all intents and purposes, it is, right? Like somebody becoming religious, suddenly very religious, is not a warning sign, right? I mean, this happens often and across religions. But it's when you join that with hateful rhetoric, inclining towards violent action, then that sudden change is a warning sign, right?
Okay.
Because there are aggravating factors now associated with that. Now, and they could see that because my rhetoric had started to increase. Talking about going to fight in Chechnya was definitely a warning sign to them. So they were a bit worried. They definitely were, but I don't think they thought that I would do anything drastic.
Okay.
Which I didn't.
Okay. Out of curiosity, just popped into my head. You're doing this for a couple of years. Do you get paid to do this?
What, doing what?
When you were in the jihad?
No. I just. Oh no.
So they take care of you basically. They take care of your food, your
If,
accommodations.
well, two things. So one is like the group that I went to India and Pakistan. They are not an extremist group. They are a fundamentalist group. And it just so happened that I went with them and had this meeting with the Taliban. So the group that I went with are legit.
Okay.
They are fundamentalists. I mean, I'll be straight about that. But fundamentalist doesn't necessarily mean extremist, right?
Yes.
Like they might not shake hands with women.
Yes.
Because they like to keep separate from people or whatever. That's fine. You want to be like that, all right? But they're not extreme. So in that group, you pay your own way,
Okay.
right? And then when I got back and I was just hanging around with these guys, there was no money involved in that. Like we didn't need to spend money.
Right.
So
Okay. So, man, so you have this journey, you have this experience, okay? And then you just kind of finished it right up until 9/11.
yeah,
So 9/11 happens. First of all, do you have
Which changed the world.
Yeah, which changed the world. Literally everything from security measures to now have to take my belt off and shoes at the airport. Like it's changed the world right now. Prior to that point, is there any indications right now that things are gonna pop off? Is there any messages going out there right now that are like, at the time when you look back, oh man, when I heard that, it could mean this. Is there anything all happening in this world?
Yeah, were you privy to like a storm that was brewing that the general public wasn't leading up to 9/11?
I think. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if I was privy to it. I think I was part of it.
Okay.
In one sense, because it was that buildup, right? It was, Bin Laden's fatwa against the Jews and Crusaders that started everything off, right? And then the bombings in Kenya and Tanzania, that escalated even more. And then this fighting that was happening in Chechnya. These were places for, physical jihad that people could look at, or Muslims could be looking at and saying, this is what we want to see more of. And then 9/11 happens.
Wow.
And then everything just gets, put to a whole other level.
Right.
So, Tuesday morning, right? I'll never forget that day because I was working at a office building and I heard on the radio the first plane hitting the building. And I'll be honest, I actually felt a little bit of elation. Because the kuffar, quote unquote, the infidels, if you will, they got what was coming to them, right? And it's crazy because I remember many, many years later, obviously, I gave a talk on the anniversary of 9/11 in a church. And I talked about how like I just said, when I heard the plane hit, I thought, okay, well, the U.S. got what it deserved. And thinking, though, that it was an accident, not that it was a deliberate terrorist attack, right? Yeah. And it was crazy because at the end of that church talk, a woman came up to me and says, you know what, my husband said the same thing that you just said.
Yeah.
So it was just that sentiment that people had against the U.S.
Yeah.
And
it's like when Kevin Durant injured his leg in the playoffs.
Oh
yeah,
right.
And the Toronto fans like,
right.
Yeah.
Great example. And then the more sensible, on the Raptors side is like, okay, hey,
exactly.
like we don't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a really good analogy because my adversary is injured, is hurt,
exactly,
and so that makes me stronger, makes me better because they're weaker.
Yeah.
So, but of course, unfortunately, I mean, after that second plane hit, I knew that this was no accident. This was very deliberate, and
so after the first one, you're thinking, "Oh my God, like this is crazy." You're not thinking this is intentional whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Well, no one was.
Right.
No one was.
Right.
I remember I was in college. I was in my class, and the teacher left for a time. Like someone called the teacher, and he came back in, and he said, "A plane just hit the World Trade Center." And I remember, I'll never forget. Everyone was like, "Huh?" Because there was no image attached to it. Everyone's trying to, and all I remember is 80% of the class didn't know what the World Trade Center was, and all you can hear is like, "Is that New York City?" And everyone's just trying to describe it.
Right.
No one had internet on their phone, so there was no reference to like really quickly show it. And in the midst of that, that's when we found out that the second one hit.
Yeah, I lived nearby my workplace. I remember driving back, and my wife was watching TV like intently, and she even kind of made this like dark joke. You know, she's like, "You sure you don't have anything to do with this? Because like the phone is ringing off the hook," and it was my friends calling the house. Like, so, you know, my non-Muslim friends basically calling and saying, "Mubin, you know, is this what you've become? Is this what your religion is
Really?
about?"
Oh my goodness.
And then my
And your wife's fielding the phone calls.
yeah, and then my Muslim friends who I knew from before were like, "Mubin, this is not our religion. This is not what we're about."
Wow.
So it was a real, you know, it forced that re-evaluation of what I got myself involved in, and like the kind of rhetoric that I was engaging in, and so I realized that.
Did any of those words penetrate? I know,
Oh,
random
yeah,
phone calls. Where are you at that? Like, because at some point, it's like a stronghold. It's something that, and by that I mean something that kind of skews your mind. Something that it's not in balance. It's not healthy. The thinking. Is there any specific word that penetrated, or was it maybe the thrust of all of them that at some point pressed against you?
I'll tell you, as that day went on, because it's so. I mean, I was at work. There was this, you know, dynamic at work where people were all, you know, in distress psychologically. You could see that because of what had happened. Then I went to my house during lunchtime. Then I finished work, and then in the evening I went to go and see the bad friends, right? The bad Muslim guys. And that's where everything basically became very clear, because one of my friends, he asked the ringleader or the mouthpiece of our friend group there, that he was like, "Yeah, but I understand, you know, fighting the enemy, whatnot, but like, how do you justify flying a plane into a building, which is not even a military target, like civilians, just business people going to work and stuff?"
Right.
And there was a pause, right, where you can smell the wood burning, right, because Buddy's trying to come up with an answer to appear that to sound knowledgeable.
Yes.
And all he ended up saying was, "Well, they're all kuffar anyway, so it doesn't matter, like infidels."
Yeah.
And like we both looked at each other with this like, like that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And you know, for especially again in the radicalization discourse and de-radicalization discourse, there's usually never one event. And if it is going to be one event, it's going to be a major traumatic event that everyone is seeing, right? So I look on that time, that moment is when I realized this is not right. There's something fundamentally wrong about this. So I realized that I didn't know Arabic, I didn't know Islamic studies, I hadn't studied any of this stuff formally. So in early 2002, I resolved even shortly after 9/11 that I was gonna go and study Arabic and Islamic studies, and I ended up choosing Syria of all places to go and do that. Sold my car, got rid of all my furniture, sold everything, collected what I could, and just basically up and went. And moved to Syria, spent 2 years there. I was introduced to Sufism, which is basically the Sufis are like the Jedis of the Muslim world.
Okay.
And like the Wahhabis are like the Sith.
Okay.
Right? It's
Yeah.
a great way to explain it.
Well, that's a great. Okay.
Uh,
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And spent 2 years there, and basically where the scholars debunked my interpretations that I had come to subscribe to, basically showing me where I went wrong and why. And so I would spend 2 years there, got fed up, and basically came back to Canada, and that's when I would become the walk-in for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
Wow, man. You know,
Oh my goodness.
that's crazy. So even in the moment when you go back, they're basically saying, "We've lost our brother. Let's bring him back in. Let's show him the way. Let's show him why." And you were able to basically fight through all that, and be
Navigate through all of
navigate through
that.
it, and make sense of it, and be like, "This is not right." I mean,
That's pretty incredible.
how often does that happen, where people are in your situation, but they get led right back in again? Does that happen? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, either it's like, think about it like belonging to a gang, right? It's
Yes.
no different, right?
Same-
I
same
mean,
dynamic. Same dynamic.
Same dynamic. I mean, your sense of meaning, belonging, identity is rooted in your membership in that group.
Yeah.
Okay.
A power group
Yeah.
again.
Power group again, exactly. I mean, we felt like we were the downtrodden Muslims, right? We
Right.
needed to be. We did become like a Muslim gang,
yes.
right? And even today, you have like gangsters out there right now. Like they call themselves gangsters. They think they're gangsters, right? there's one, halal gang or something. You know what I mean? Halal means lawful
Yes.
and pure and good.
Okay.
Right? It's like kosher.
Yes.
It's it's exactly the
Yes.
same as kosher.
Exactly.
How you street gang you call yourself halal gang?
Yeah.
But the thing is, again, is they're tapping into these markers, right?
Right.
The religiosity, the ethnic group, or whatever it is. So I mean, I think they for a lot of people, I don't think they get, once you've convinced yourself that the group is full of shit, there's no going back.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
like it becomes very clear.
you're out. Yeah, if it won't happen right then and there, I mean, it'll happen shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that, and we were introduced to you by Ron Chinzer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who?
Ron Chinzer?
No, Derek.
Derek?
Oh,
yeah. Oh my
Yes.
goodness,
O'Rourke.
mixing it up.
Yes.
O'Rourke. Yes. Sorry, we're just getting cross-referenced.
Yeah.
One of the first. Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Ron he's a part of the Guns and Gangs unit.
Yeah, that's why I
Okay.
brought that thought when you mentioned gangs.
He's
Alright.
an expert on gangs and everything. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
you guys should meet though. 'cause
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
an element
For
of-
sure.
yeah.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the very first things that came through my mind was like, oh my goodness, what a story. This guy's now helping CSIS right now basically look for those to do these things, right?
Yeah.
And then my mind right off the bat, of course, having security background, is, are you safe in the situation? Because right now you're going on the complete other side right now. Almost like, do you feel like going in that area would put a target on you, in the sense of where, you know what I mean? Because you're literally not
yeah.
going again. So I mean,
I know
that's
what you mean.
scary in itself. You talk about leaving a gang. I mean, a lot of gangs leave gangs. You get marked for
Yeah.
leaving gangs. So like,
Right.
how was that, man? Like to deal with something like that now, where I'm about to take this next step on the other end of the spectrum.
And actually undercover, to be
Yeah.
undercover.
Yeah, it's a good question, because when I decided I was going to go to Syria to study, the bad guys who were here thought I was going to escalate. They thought, oh, this guy's going overseas now. Like, what is he doing? What is he going to do while he's over there? So they didn't know that I had this change of mind, change of heart. So I get over there. I spend my years there. And when I come back, they think that, they don't know what to think, really. Most people, they didn't know what to think. And I know some people were trying to check on me to see, like, what was this guy doing over there? Who was he with? So, like, people were able to verify that, in fact, I was there and I was at this, Islamic university. And, I wasn't, like I said, I didn't go there to engage in anything else. I just wanted to go and study. But I was thinking that if the Great War kicked off while I was there, I would participate. Thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
It did end up happening. That is this war, but 10 years after.
Yeah.
In 2010-ish.
Okay.
And by then I had come back, and I don't know what the hell, what the regime would have been doing to me and my family.
Right.
So I came back in 2004, and the first week that I'm back, I look at the newspaper, and on the front page is a guy by the name of Mubin Khawaja. Mubin Khawaja is the first Canadian arrested on terrorism charges in our post 9/11 terrorism legislation. Mubin Khawaja sat beside me in that Quran school I went to as a kid.
Wow.
Oh,
I grew up with this kid. We used to play Hot Wheels cars together.
Yeah.
wow.
Right? And unbeknownst to me, he had been caught up, because I'm reading it in the article now, but he got caught up, like I said, in the 2004 London fertilizer bomb plot, where he was making the detonator for these guys who were in the UK. So I call up. Remember those things called phone books?
Yes. Yes.
So I go to the back
Yes.
of the phone book, look up Canadian Security Intelligence Service, call them up, and say, hey, this guy that you arrested, this has to be a mistake. Now, I had no idea the way that the differences in mandates work with CSIS versus RCMP. CSIS doesn't arrest anybody. They're not police. And the RCMP do the federal policing part, especially with national security investigations. And then it goes to court. And then the courts deal with it. I didn't know any of this. And then CSIS was like, oh, well, since you're calling us about this guy, And I thought they were going to be like, where are you this Friday or like in a few days? They were like, so where are you going to be in the next hour and a half? Because, we would like to send somebody to come and talk to you. So I was like, oh, okay. Now, understand something. I had just spent 2 years in Syria, a real police state. The first thing I did when I got there is I registered with the embassy. And I let them know I'm here with my family. This is where I live.
Mm-hmm.
If shit hits the fan, take us home. So that really worked well in my favor because when they did do background checking on me, trying to, locate and verify and all that stuff, lo and behold, I had come into the embassy. So they're like, oh, well, clearly this guy's not trying to hide.
Right.
We didn't need to go and find out, So anyways, the CSIS officer came over and he was a manager in one of their units and basically just put to me the prospect that, hey, well, I like the way you think, you have access to that community, the vulnerable and at-risk community. We would like for you to consult for us. That's the way they phrased it.
How old are you exactly here? You're 20.
So it's 2004, yeah. So
okay. So it's like 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just before hitting 26, I
Yeah.
guess. So yeah, and then for a few years after that, a couple of years, I just did undercover operations. It was on like human infiltration, as well as online password protected chat forums.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, if you can imagine a time, this is before social media. Right? This is before Facebook and Twitter and all that crap. They had password protected chat forums, so you needed to know somebody physically in order for that person to give you a password that you could then use on your computer at home
to give you access.
give you access. And it was all filled with jihadi videos, the war in Chechnya, all beheading videos. This stuff was coming out like years and years ago. And so basically that's what I did for 2 years with the service. And then one day, like every other day, when they give me a tasking, they just said to me, listen, there's a bunch of guys, they're meeting up at this place, tell us what they're about.
So, case in point, was it 2006, the Toronto 18?
Yeah, so that's what I'm leading to there. So that's what became the Toronto 18 case. It started off as a CSIS investigation.
Yeah.
And again, like they showed me these are the guys. Tell us what they're about. Now, so there was November 25th, 2005. I was tasked to go to this place and meet these guys, and sure enough, these guys showed up, and I became buddies with them, just shooting the shit and trying to infiltrate and find out like what's going on. So first, I was just developing rapport with them. And until they started to kind of ramp up the rhetoric, started to try to indoctrinate me or recruit me, basically, invoking the grievances of the Iraq War, invoking the grievances of the Afghanistan War. That the Canadians went in Afghanistan, the Americans went in Iraq, and because the Canadians are allies of the Americans, and the Canadians are fair targets. Right, you can see that mental gymnastics that they go through.
Yeah, the creative math.
Yeah,
process of deduction. Yeah.
So basically, they ended up inviting me to this training camp that they had proposed and planned, and asked me to come in and train their people, at this camp and bring them to a level of capability where they could conduct really a section level attack on. Some various targets, any kind of target, really. A little bit later, they did try to narrow down their focus and come up with a specific plot. But in the beginning, that's how it started. And so I remember that day very, very vividly because I remember calling the controller and saying, this guy is an effing time bomb waiting to go off.
Yeah.
And again, these guys had organized their group. They had decided that they were going to have this training camp. They had selected the training camp site. The ringleaders visited the site, invited all the people to the camp. All of this before I was sent in to infiltrate the group, because I was hammered over accusations of entrapment.
Yes.
because a lot of people don't understand how undercover operations work, right? Like the mere presence of an undercover doesn't equal entrapment. And there is only one way to gather evidence of covert criminal wrongdoing, and that is through covert collection.
Okay.
So, but of course, the operation ran about 6 months, let's say. So I was operational with the RCMP. I traversed now over to the RCMP as what's called a police agent, basically given immunity to commit terrorist offenses, which just means, like, what? No, it just means that I can basically be a part of a group that is plotting and planning and whatever else. So it ran for 6 months. June 2006, the hammer fell. 18 people got arrested. There was a huge media story, a lot of media coverage. In some respects, I would say a little bit too much of the coverage, a little too much theater.
Yeah. Can you give an idea of what was collected? So collected,
Yeah, so it really comes down to the same thing, two things: technical intercepts and human eyewitness. So I'm the human source. I give the fact witness testimony. Then you have the technical intercepts, and technical intercepts are two types. One is basically an audio recording. So the work car, quote unquote, that I would drive with was wired 6 ways to Sunday. And all those conversations were recorded into an audio format. Then you did also have some video of different aspects of it. So, after we went shopping for supplies for the camp, there was another undercover who was in the vehicle, and he was doing like a covert filming.
So you didn't have to film yourself per se.
I didn't have to film myself. The only thing I will say is, at some points, I did wear a body pack to record my interactions with certain people.
Are you nervous doing this, like at all in the moment? Because it's kind of like, what if they find out it's something that I'm doing this undercover?
Yeah, we've all seen the movies where it goes awry.
Yeah, exactly.
They see the wire, it
sticks
out.
Absolutely, that is how they do it, don't you know? It's a wire just taped to the chest.
Yeah.
I want everyone out there to realize that is how it is done, just like in the movies. Okay. It was funny because one of the guys, we were about to stand up for prayer in the masjid, and the guy came up to me and starts patting me on my back and doing like circles and stuff. And I'm like, yo, why is this guy so touchy-feely with me, right? He's not like that, right?
Yeah.
And I realized this guy's trying to figure out if I have a wire on me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I did.
Wow.
Okay. And I was just like, like, what do I do now if
So you pretended to be extremely ticklish.
Yeah, I kind of
laughing hysterically.
Well, I made
started tickling him back.
No, I made
as a ploy to divert away from. Can you imagine?
Well,
that's a good movie scene, right? Like,
sure. I did kind of one step better, which was, I was like, brother, you're getting a little too frisky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like, especially for them, if you were to kind of like, you could insult them by suggesting, what are you, gay?
Yes.
Right? And then you say that to him in the mosque.
Yes.
Say a little bit out loud, and like he's finished, right? Like
exactly.
So I was just playing it off. Right?
Yeah.
Frisky. It's a good word.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just put this out right now.
Yeah.
Let's say you felt something. What do you think would have happened?
Okay. Let's use the scenario. Let's say if he felt the body pack.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We felt something. Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
The body package.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
If let's see how quickly it would escalate. Right. If he did start to really focus on it, and now he knows there's something there, and then his demeanor changes, I would try to do whatever, like, leave me alone, man. This is just my belt buckle or whatever.
Exactly,
it's like, but if it keeps going to the point where it's about to reveal, you kick him in the face is what you do, right?
No, something extreme.
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna be very extreme. Yeah, it'll probably be like some kind of really quick strike to the throat.
Yeah, so you can't
just
talk.
to disable him or like really, not just not talk, but like give him that, because that feeling like when you get hit in that voice box with just like a ridge hand or a quick little pop to the throat.
No, I was thinking
it hurts.
Pop his throat and then you'd run, and then while people are asking him,
what happened, brother? What happened?
You can't talk. It buys you more time.
But the thing is, this is going in your head regardless, because you're like thinking, what if this happens? What am I going to do?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Where are my exits?
That was always covered. I mean, so what's interesting, let me put it this way. So with CSIS, you're on your own, right? Like it's only you and your wits. Right?
Wow.
There's no help is not coming. It's up to us.
So
right?
they can listen to everything.
Nobody can hear anything.
Oh wow.
So let me say this. With CSIS, I didn't wear a body pack. Okay. Nor was I, I've been through court, all right? So nor was I required to conduct any recordings of any conversations that I may or may not have had.
Yes.
With the RCMP, of course, very different, because now it's court evidence collection, right?
Yes.
So with them, there's a body pack. And while there's no real-time intercept.
Right.
Like when I'm in the mosque, they don't know what's going on. They're gonna wait for me to come out.
Wow.
They're waiting hidden somewhere.
Right.
And then when I get out of the mosque or whatever place I'm at, then when the day is over, we had a whole routine, right? Like we would go and we had a safe house that we would end up going to, because I had to type up the reports that day, because they had to be timely reports.
Yes.
Because when you're testifying to it in court, they're going to ask you, when did you write those reports?
Yes.
Was it immediately thereafter?
Right.
Because if you wait too long, you might have forgotten something, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So we had this whole thing, scripted out in that sense. But when I'm in the building or I'm with these people, even though I have a body pack, it's just recording. All right, that's all it's doing.
Yes.
So nobody knows what's going on. So if shit hit the fan, they would just see me come running out of the door.
Yes.
And that's it, right?
Okay.
And but it would have required an extreme reaction for sure.
Wow.
I was ready to do whatever I had to do. Like and plus I've done a lot of I've done Muay Thai and some jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. So I was comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah. If something happened.
Yeah, if something happened, like these guys weren't exactly scrappers or whatever.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. You can say words like frisky and they'll back off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I just
So we have it now. So look, the series is The Collectors.
The Collectors.
And then a
Collectors.
spin-off is Covert, The
Yeah.
Covert Collectors. And then the next spin-off is The Court Collectors.
Yes.
Right? We think.
Well, there is a show coming. So
Really?
Man,
yeah.
Man, someone always beats you, right?
But I like the title Collectors.
Yeah.
I hope you mentioning it on the show is not copyright.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'll hook you guys up. Well, this segment of Standing in the Six brought to you by.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, so let me. Now what's happened? I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I will come back to it. I've done a lot of media stuff, and I've been very public about what I've been doing, and so different corporations have gotten in touch with me, and military units, and Hollywood. And I didn't want to make a story about my life, and I'm not into that, right? Like I want to kind of give credit back to people who are doing this stuff on the daily without any limelight, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all in the shadows. Mm-hmm. And so we're working on a show. I think I can mention the name. It's going to be called The Assets.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically going to be in the context of covert counterterrorism, so on and so forth. So I don't know if
and that's the lingo, right? When discussing someone.
Yeah.
We have an asset in Toronto.
Yes.
So if you imagine, I don't know if you've seen.
We have an asset in the 6.
Yeah.
Contact rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Essex. No.
Essex. Yeah, short form. Yeah.
Anyways,
He's friends with Drake.
Yeah. The Bodyguard. It was a Netflix show, Bodyguard.
Yes.
It's a really, really good show.
Really
right?
good show. Have you seen it?
I haven't
It's the
seen
one
it
that
yet.
Joe's talking about.
Yeah, I heard
Filmed in
Okay.
UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna basically. So we're working with, I think, the producer of that show.
Okay.
Or maybe it's another show. Maybe I might be getting confused. But we're gonna do a similar type of show, like 6-episode series.
Wow.
Event, right?
Yes.
So
And all based on true story, man.
No, this one will be fictionalized.
Okay.
Okay. It will use real people though. Like I mean, it's basic stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to keep it ambiguous so that they can't be identified,
Of course,
or obviously,
of
or all
course.
that stuff. But the I think the selling point that they're trying to use here is that they have an executive consultant, me,
Yes.
on the show, which all of these shows don't have.
Yeah.
And then when people like us watch these shows, I don't know how often it happens to you. Like it happens to me all the time. It's like, that's bullshit. that's wrong. That's
Right.
not true.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Doesn't work that way.
yeah, I love the surveillance, you know, right in front of the house, like directly across the street, and they're looking through the side of the car, and the guy comes out, he looks all around, and it's like you don't see the car right in front of you, and the two guys sitting in it staring right at you. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
This is where if they did a wide shot,
it kills
if there was an establishing shot, you'd see the cars like 20 feet from the front door.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that drives me nuts, right? Like never-ending magazines, you know, of
Yeah, never ending.
It's like I was like, all right, you know.
Yeah.
But so
Or the
basically,
51 round, you know, just like
exactly, never-ending magazines. I love those. I need one of those, please. Two, please.
Yeah.
yes.
Like I can only suspend belief for so long until
Right.
it's just
You lost me, you
blatantly.
lost me.
Yes.
I can't do it. So I'm hoping to
So
kind
you're
of
gonna
bring
keep
that.
the integrity of these.
Yeah, I want to
to
bring some more realism to it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I might need to falsify because they might get it really right, and you don't also want to be giving away trade
Copycat.
secrets.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
that responsibility as well. But if I can just come back to the Toronto
Yes,
18,
man. Let's do it. Let's do
Yeah.
just basically, so I was operational for about 6 months, collecting. You asked the question, what was collected? So it was all these technical intercepts. It was, of course, my own evidence, eyewitness testimony. And then June 2006, the hammer fell, and 18 guys got arrested in total. I would then spend 4 years in court in 5 legal hearings,
Wow.
prosecuting these individuals. So we had a youth preliminary hearing, or 2. So 1 youth preliminary hearing, January 2007. Adult preliminary hearing, September 2007. Trial. So after the preliminary hearings, some of them start to plead guilty because they're like, "Oh shit,
This
like,
is going nowhere.
this is good." I mean, there's
What's
so much evidence.
What's the general age range of the 18 of them?
Really weird. You know, there's one guy that was really old. He was like in his 50s.
Okay.
But the vast majority of them were between the ages of, so there were 4 young offenders, 4 who were under the age of 18, and 14 who were above the age of 18.
Okay.
But only one was in his 50s. The adults, quote unquote, was from 18 to about 22, 23.
Wow, relatively young.
really
man.
young.
Yeah.
So the 50-year guy, I guess he was just
He was a loser.
slower learner.
He was just a loser in his community, and he was always railing against Canadian forces because of what they had done in Afghanistan, and everybody else kind of saw him as the local kook. But these young guys, they saw him as a brother in arms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So spent all this time giving testimony, and then when I was done, 2010, the case was done. I got onto social media, Facebook, Twitter. Was very public about who I was. You know, I didn't go into witness protection. Why should I? I'm from Toronto. Like, why would I leave my city and cut off all my friends because some people are upset because of what I did? Right? I'm not going to be apologetic for what I did. Right? I'd do it 10 times again if I was given the choice. So, basically, I got onto social media, put my public profile out there. Went through a lot of pushback. Of course, a lot of people were and are still in denial of the case in general. It was really the usual arguments of entrapment. It was all entrapment. You made them do it. You did everything, and it was just like some people, they're not going to believe no matter what you show them.
Yeah.
But then the Syrian war kicked off. The Arab Spring was happening, and then ISIS. And so I would then spend the years of 2012, 13, 14, and 15, 16, and finally 17. But it took me about a year and a half to extricate myself from it. I basically spent those years online debating and tracking and trolling ISIS.
Wow.
I saw the rise of ISIS in real time. I made these fake profiles to see if they would get recruited by ISIS.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
I had my own public profile where I was always harassing them and like I said, tracking some of them and trolling them using really my experience coming from this extremist mindset.
Yeah, talking their language.
Talking their
basically.
language,
Yeah.
man. Talking their language.
Yeah.
And it was at this time that
That's fascinating.
I really got in touch with the U.S. State Department and U.S. Special Operations Command, and from those years did a lot of work with those agencies against ISIS.
So you heard it here first. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
trolling can be used for good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's this hilarious. I do this presentation for the military now, and it's called basically. I call it terrorism in Islamic costume. All right, because I don't like the phrase radical Islamic terrorism because the word Islamic is used incorrectly as an adjective.
Okay.
But because the adversary does appeal to the Islamic sources, you need to have the word Islamic. So I put terrorism in Islamic costume. Basically, what I do is I show all the tweets that ISIS followers and recruiters used to lure people
For recruitment.
Yeah, for recruitment. It's funny. Like I do have like dark humor, right? It's a coping mechanism.
Same.
And it's funny because on one of the, it gets real serious. ISIS is saying it's not about the number of people killed, it's about the number of people watching. So the whole idea of terrorism as theater.
Yep.
And then as it goes on, there's like Ask.fm. It's a platform where people were asking, if I come, how much money should I bring? What kind of, clothes and so on and so forth. And then I switch to the next line and it says, are there good-looking women there? Right?
Yeah.
And then even with the ladies, on the female side, female recruitment and women ISIS, if you will, there's this thing. It says, I just wanted to get my piece of eye candy. And it's basically attractive jihadists luring female fighters.
Wow.
Right? Like, or female members to join.
Yes.
So anyway, I go through this whole thing and I basically I use the Islamic sources to debunk the extremist narratives and whatnot. It just really exposes how they were recruiting, how they use the internet, how internet companies, they have no sense of responsibility. They allow these people to, be on their platforms. Like look at now, right, with all this white supremacist attacks that are happening in the U.S. and forums like 8chan and 4chan and whatnot. And it's like, it's frustrating, right? Because it's like, there is a way to stop them. Like, don't give them a platform, right? Mm-hmm. People say, this
is great debate right now because of freedom of speech, right? That the platforms aren't government. And if you were to deplatform someone who is throwing out hate rhetoric, that, no one would know how dangerous they are. Because there's an element for the majority, people would be, that guy's an extremist. Or white supremacist. But if it's cloaked or certain things are hidden from what they post, it's not like, once you start controlling that, where does it stop? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even at this time, because my business partner right now, he's an ex-CIA guy, and, we talked about this, and the dilemma is, because especially during the ISIS heyday, the dilemma was that if we take all these guys offline, we don't know where they are. We don't know what they're doing, who they're talking to, what platforms they're using.
And as Jeff Goldblum says famously in Jurassic Park, nature finds a way. Right? I mean, that's the truth. Right. Look at jails, anything. Think of jails. Right. They have the ultimate surveillance. I mean, they literally have nothing, and they still find a way. Right. They fashion. They get incredibly creative. They say creative genius is actually birthed out of limitation. Mm-hmm. So the more you limit an avenue or a resource, the more creative they get, and the more it goes underground, and the harder it is to figure out. There's an element of that. I mean, not saying that.
I do agree with it.
Yeah,
I do agree with it because, I mean, I saw that. I mean, even the CIA guy was saying, he's like, look, Shaikh, he's like, if we turn the lights out, then we can't see anything either. And if you leave them on, a few people might get recruited by them. But we are going to map the hell out of their network.
That's a great way of saying if you turn the lights out, Yeah,
and then we're going to go, some guys we tracked and a whole bunch of guys we whacked.
Yeah.
That's how it went.
Right.
Because if you can't track them and map them, how are you going to hit them?
That's
it's
right.
true.
That's right.
That's a principle in close protection.
Yeah.
You can't hit a target you don't see.
Right.
So there's an element of cloaking your principal, whoever your VIP is.
So
interesting.
Wow, man.
Wow.
So here we are in 2019.
Yeah.
And
have you completely pulled out of even that piece now with CSIS, or are you still?
Yeah, I'm no longer with. My work with the service ended way back. Would have been the end. Technically, or I should say legally, I traversed over to the RCMP December 2005.
Okay.
And then the case ran till June 2006.
Yes.
And then it was over.
Okay.
And then so I have no formal ties with them.
Yes.
Since then, it was interesting because a year after the case was completed is when CSIS reached back out to me just to say, hey buddy, how you doing, is everything good?
Wow, man.
And so
Wow.
So what's your role with the RCMP right now? We were talking
nothing,
earlier.
man. I'm an independent consultant.
Yes.
I love where I sit.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love where I am.
Yes.
I respect the institutional mandates that these organizations have to be under. But boy, am I glad I'm no longer part of that, because it allows you to do what you want, work with who you want.
Freelance.
Yeah,
That's all
man.
that's what
Yeah,
it's
man.
about.
Yeah, and also you're a pivotal piece to making a difference in someone. Like someone's gonna listen to this or has listened to, one of your past, workshops or meetings or conversations about what to avoid, man. I mean, you're almost like it's a real big service what you're doing, and I commend you on that, man. That's
Yeah, it's
amazing.
incredible.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, the information is key. What is the data that you work with? Having access to it can change anything.
Absolutely.
Can change in your life. So it's amazing that you're equipped in special ops and police and giving them the information that they need. From the inside out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like we're not talking about making a TV series.
No, for
you're
sure.
saying certain producers on the outside say, you know what, let's do this, and they don't have it. They don't get it right.
And
Yeah.
look, there's
We're talking real life.
Yeah.
And human life. Homeland security. You have to get those things right. You need to know how
for
to work.
sure. And there's probably a lot of people that if they were in your situation, wouldn't do nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
No,
It happens.
I want to say
It
something.
happens a lot.
We know this. We have busy lives. There's an element where we don't feel that any of this relates to me.
right.
I'm enjoying other shows on Netflix.
Yeah.
I was saying before we jumped on today that, what is it again? CNBRE?
CBRNE,
CBRNE, which stands for chemical
biological, radiological, nuclear,
explosives.
Right.
Yeah. And there was a police truck that was in Yorkville. So we kind of film in and around this area. And literally, I'm not even joking, 200 meters from where we're seated, this truck was there last night. And they were investigating a pickup truck that had a driver. Gentleman was Caucasian, handcuffed. And for whatever reason, he was swarmed by police. It was calm in the sense of nothing was happening with, he was already cuffed and seated in his own pickup truck. But this truck came to do probably on-site testing of possible explosives. But I was saying that in the midst of that, you have people in Yorkville eating their gelato, walking. No, I'm not even joking. Yorkville's famous for people walking their dogs anywhere. And they're letting their little dogs go like up to the police while the police are actually talking with it. You get what I'm saying? Like, and it's just such a dichotomy of two worlds, man. Like right in the middle of like one of the crowning jewels of our city in terms of appeal and notoriety and just luxury. And you have this incident with this pickup truck,
Right.
and people are totally clueless. Like they didn't even realize what it is. No one thought to maybe Google the acronym on the police truck. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, people are very, very ignorant to. We're Canadians. Everything is so peaceful.
Yeah.
Love, peace and love, peace and love. Like literally, they're not realizing what's out
Peace,
there.
love, and
You know what I
Drake.
mean? Yeah,
Hey, another
exactly.
show.
I mean, it's crazy.
Hey, that's a good title.
Yeah, I mean, it's like again, there's a lot of things.
I know
in
you're
place.
listening, Drake.
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a good album title right there. Peace, love,
there's a
and
lot of
Drake.
things in place that are put there, like with the contributions of people like yourself that are helping prevent and give people that safety.
Yeah, can you speak on that? Just because, you have an insight.
Yeah.
Canada's known worldwide, has a reputation for working off intelligence.
Yeah.
From a preventative sense.
Yeah.
We're not patting each other on the back because we took them out.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
It's a good observation. There's a lot of stuff. You guys know this, of course, as well. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, normal day-to-day stuff that people will never see. They will never see because it doesn't become anything.
Right.
That's what prevention is all about.
Yes.
And how do you quantify that? You can't
You
really,
can't.
right? It's impossible. Like this is the big dilemma now with, in terms of investing in prevention programs, right? Whether it's like gun violence, gangs, extremism, terrorism, it's all kind of the same kind of violent extremism umbrella. But you can't quantify prevention, right? We have adages like prevention is better than cure, right? Or an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what does that translate into money, right? Like it's impossible. We can't do it. So, there's a lot of stuff that happens on a daily basis which we will never hear about, especially stuff that's happening with CSIS itself, because it's secret, right? It will never see the light of day unless it ends up in court. Right? That's the only way that we'll know that something was going on.
Yeah.
So, there are so many things that are prevented. And, I should say one thing at least, because I come from the Muslim community, and there does seem to be a misunderstanding. A lot of people don't realize that, and let me say two things here, right? Because I don't want to give you the PR pitch either, right? I don't bullshit, right? That's my superpower.
Nice.
On one hand,
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
On one hand, there is denial in some segments of the community.
Okay.
Right? They refuse to believe that there are bad people out to do bad things, right? And it's like a protection mechanism, right? They want to see their community as pure and innocent and everyone is good, right?
Exactly like a mom who refuses to accept.
Right.
Exactly.
Little
Yes.
Johnny.
That's right.
There's
That's
no
right.
way, yeah.
Was looking up skirts.
Yeah.
Nope.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. Okay.
I didn't raise him that way.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way. Yeah.
He makes his bed in the morning.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are some in the community, because recently there was a story on CSIS visiting U of T students.
Okay.
And a bunch of them getting real, upset that CSIS was showing up there and asking people for information, whatever else. And I had to laugh. They're like, oh, they're creating a hotline for Muslim students who are being approached by CSIS, this and that. I was like, you need a hotline? Really? It's like, how many is this happening to? It's like, 12 people over the past 18 months. Like, okay.
Yes.
That justifies a hotline, does
That's the
it?
frequency of it.
I think whatever. All right. But okay, let me not totally, totally make fun of them. I do laugh and chuckle, and it's because I take it personally, because these are also the people who accuse me of entrapment and believe that, there's no threat or the threat is inflated or whatever. But on the other hand, you have many people who are very cooperative. You have Muslim intelligence officers, not just in CSIS, but you have Muslim police officers in the RCMP, in the Canadian Forces, and just community members who, if they hear something, they are going to call the authorities and they're going to say, listen, this guy, he's saying some weird stuff and da-da-da, maybe you should check him out. And now, just imagine this coming back to that comment I made about anonymous phone calls, right?
Yes.
These are the anonymous phone calls. And now CSIS has to leverage its sources and other undercovers to now verify that information.
Yes.
And that's how the system works.
Okay.
So that's really the thing I wanted to just highlight, is that while there are people who are not cooperative, there are many more that are.
Yes.
And never assume, right? Because we need the help of communities. This is very important. Whenever I it's funny, when I was the undercover and I dressed the way that I dressed, which is like an observant Muslim look, people, they saw a terrorist.
Yeah.
But I'm actually the undercover.
Yes.
So never assume, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Never assume when you see somebody in garb or whatever, don't think that automatically, they're extremists, they're terrorists.
Yes.
Right.
And I like that reference, Islamic costume.
Yeah.
There's something really accurate about that you could apply across many things.
Yeah.
It seems that's, like a wolf in sheep's clothing,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
Don't give sheep a bad name.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
you
right.
know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Right,
Sheep
they're
are
so nice.
They're
Yeah.
so nice.
Wow,
Look, Ben, we want to thank you for coming today. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, most
man,
welcome, thanks.
I feel like we could just keep going and going and going.
Right.
I think we're gonna have to wait till this TV series comes out.
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
amazing.
It's amazing
man,
like
for
how
sure.
things like that, you can use a means of that type of storytelling to give insight as an executive consultant on it. So we look forward to that miniseries.
Yeah,
do you know-
we might need some VIP people.
Come on,
Hey,
man.
sounds
Come on.
good.
Of course. man.
Show them how it's done.
That's right, man.
have
That's
you guys
right.
started filming it yet?
No,
Okay.
it's we're doing the pitches only. It's September 16, the week of September 16.
Yes.
We're in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's right after TIFF.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, TIFF ends on the 15th, so Hollywood will all be back in Hollywood.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Very
we might
nice,
be there.
man.
We might be in Hollywood.
Possibly.
then. Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see.
we
Okay.
gotta represent the 6.
Come on,
Yeah,
man.
let's go.
Come
What
on.
is
let's
LA
go.
called?
La La
Are they called
Land.
anything?
La
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 Land.
Land.
Yeah.
Yeah, Southland, La La Land. There's different ones.
Yes, yes.
Does it really matter?
Yeah.
We're just gonna scream Drake to the
Yeah,
hills,
yeah.
right? And then ask
right.
the Weeknd to come from his house. And
There you go, man.
'Cause
There
he
you
lives
go. Mubin, Shaikh, thank you so much,
Yeah, man.
brother. We appreciate you
Thanks
coming
for
down,
having
man. And
Yeah.
looking forward to like really just seeing stuff like this change perceptions of all.
Right on.
Appreciate it, bro.
yeah,
Thanks
awesome.
so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah,
All
man.
the best, dude.
Cheers, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Listen to this episode on iTunes and Spotify. Make sure to drop by next week. And don't forget to subscribe.
Let's go!
It's time to give a shout out to our sponsors. This podcast is brought to you by Sentinel Security Plus. For all your premium security needs, visit sentinelsecurityplus.com. And The Substance Group. For all your integrated marketing solutions, visit thesubstancegroup.com.